So when people hear the name Grappler Garage, I want them to think of a couple of things. First of all, I want them to think of kind of how I see the garage as a place to get things accomplished. In addition to that, I want them to think of high quality products made from junk, spare parts lying around. Growing up, my grandfather made a lot of different things just out of stuff he had lying around the house, things that he would actually find in dumpsters, or just when he was out on walks, he'd find stuff lying on the side of the road. And so I think that a lot of inspiration for making things out of nothing or making things out of junk really kind of came from him. And so when I had some spare car parts lying around from an engine swap that I'd done in the past, I didn't really want to just haul it to the junkyard. And so I thought, well, if I can make something that is pleasing to the eye, that's functional, that I can use, or I can sell it and other people can use it, and really upcycle or recycle those parts, then that's something that sounded like a lot of fun to me. A typical project, if I was to average it, there's so many different variables when it comes to the length of a project. If I was to average from the shortest project to the longest project, I'd probably have to say maybe a month. More complex projects, maybe changes or problems that I run into along the way, tools that I need to acquire or materials I need to acquire, that obviously will lengthen the time it takes to complete a project. When I was in college, I worked at a home for adults with mental disabilities. And I met a really good friend of mine, ended up becoming a best friend of mine there that worked there as well. And he had an interest in cars too. And so I'd take my 240 out there, and he had an old Toyota Celica at the time, and then he got rid of that and ended up buying himself I think it was a 1991 300ZX. And so we'd go out to the shop, because this place we worked at had a huge shop where they would maintain their vehicles, and that's where their maintenance crew worked. And they were really kind enough to let us go in there on our off hours and utilize the shop and many of their own tools to work on our cars. And so I spent many days and nights during those summers with my friend working on our cars. We'd listen to music, we'd take a break, go down to like the Burger King or Dairy Queen and grab a burger and fries, come back, and just spending time with good friends like that is what comes to my mind when I think of my favorite memory. I bought this car back in, I think it was 2006 or 2007. So I've had it quite a long time. And it's an interesting story. I was in college getting my hair cut in the dorm, and another friend of mine, he came down, and there was a bunch of us down there just kind of chit-chatting, and he came down and he asked, does anybody want to buy my car? Well, he had this car before me. He had this 240SX, and I knew what kind of car it was, and I knew what potential it could have as far as being a really cool car. He asked that, he's like, anybody want to buy my car for $100? Well, my hand shot up because I couldn't pass up a deal like that. So $100 was something that I could not pass up. And at the time, the engine didn't run, and I hadn't really gotten into cars quite yet, and so I didn't know a whole lot. Before getting married, I knew I really wanted to do something with this car. And so I figured, well, now's the time to do it. After getting married, I'm probably not going to have a whole lot of time or money to dedicate towards this project. Fortunately, it turned out in the end really well. So I'm very pleased with how it turned out. I have a lot of fun going to car shows with it, seeing little kids come up and wanting to touch the truck bed liner, and letting them sit in the car and answering questions and everything. So it's been a real pleasure and blessing to have a car that other people can appreciate, and that I get to have the opportunity to meet and share stories with, and get to know them better.